Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Green Party of Canada leadership debate on the climate emergency. I'll be your moderator for the evening. My name is Angela Bischoff, and I'm campaigns director for the Ontario Clean Air Alliance. We're a nonpartisan organization working to transition Ontario to a 100% renewable energy future. We see a need for bold leadership on climate and want leaders of every party to do more to address this challenge. I'm honored to be here in Toronto on the traditional territory of many First Nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse nations. I'd also like to wish our Jewish candidates and viewers Shana Tova, Happy New Year, and we apologize for hosting this event on a high holiday. We are in a climate emergency, from raging fires to droughts to melting glaciers and collapsing ice shelves. It's clear we are well into the danger zone. For millions of people around the world who are being displaced because of our changing climate, getting a handle on reducing our carbon pollution is a matter of life and death. Clearly, this is an issue of utmost importance for the committed candidates vying to be the new leader of the Canadian Green Party. I thank you all for joining us today and for sharing your ideas. And a big welcome to our 900 plus viewers from all across Canada. Clearly, this is an issue top of mind for voters. As your moderator, I'm tasked with ensuring that the rules of the debate are respected. The speaker order for each question was randomly selected. There will be an opening round where all candidates get 60 seconds to introduce themselves. Following that will be a series of questions where each candidate will get 90 seconds to respond. To ensure that the candidates stick to their time, there will be a 15-second bell warning, and I'll follow up with the time's up. Each candidate will also get just one 30-second opportunity to rebut another. Just raise your hand if you wish to rebut. For the viewers, we've disabled the chat box because we're all here to hear from the candidates themselves. To learn more about or contact the candidates, you can find them all listed at the greenparty.ca website. And that's it for the rules. Let's begin. Let's first hear from the candidates themselves on why they think they're the right person to lead the Green Party of Canada. So first up for opening statements is Glenn Murray. You're on.
Thanks very much, Angela. And I just want to start off by thanking the Ontario Clean Air Alliance. We worked so closely together on coal plant closures, on banning coal forever in Ontario. We worked closely with you on opening up the tie lines with Quebec and making a $500 million investment that allowed clean hydro power and renewables to flow into Ontario. The relationships we had with you, with key people in the industry, with unions like Unifor and others, and the solid relationship we had across provincial boundaries allowed us to create the partnerships and the relationships that we were able to do unprecedented levels of greenhouse gas reductions and advancing renewables. I want to thank you for that because I think it is an example for all Canadians and for our entire party on how government, business, labor, and the environmental movement can rapidly create change. I think I have just always brought that skill set to the table, and thank you very much. I would like to be able to do more of that as leader of our party.
Thanks so much, Glenn. Next, we've got Courtney.
Hi, thanks, and thank you also for hosting this debate. It's great timing on the follow-up because I'll follow up on Glenn's story. So I am an emergency physician here in the Yellowknives-Dene territory in the north, and we are melting. This is one of the most rapidly warming places on the planet, and I serve a patient population that extends up to the Arctic Circle where they're already 3 degrees Celsius warmer. Because of that, I've spent about a decade working in the intersection of health and climate change and have been lucky to help lead a movement nationally and internationally at that interface. And the organization I've been part of, the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment, in fact, worked very closely with Glenn's work in Ontario and the Clean Air Alliance to lead those coal-fired power plant closures in Ontario. And one of the reasons, I just published a case study on this in the Lancet Planetary Health, that it worked was that health professionals are trusted messengers on this topic, and presenting climate change in a health frame has been shown to be the best way to motivate populations to take action across the political spectrum. So I'm running for the Green Party because I think I am the best place to present climate change in the best frame. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Courtney, I didn't say your last name. That was Courtney Howard. And now we have Miriam Haddad.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. So my name is Miriam Haddad, and I'm a millennial. I joined this race because I realized that the current politicians are not basing their decisions and choices for the future of my generation, the next ones. Voting and participating in demonstrations is simply not enough anymore. We have a window opening of 5 to 7 years to save ourselves from extinction, and the Green Party is the only one credible on tackling the climate emergency. We have to find a way to become stronger in Ottawa, and it starts by having inspiring campaigns. That requires us to stop being a one-issue party. Fighting climate change requires us to fight against inequalities, because this climate crisis and ecological crisis is the biggest social justice issue of our time. And I think I can be inspiring enough for Canadians. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. Dimitri Lascaris.
First, I'd like to acknowledge, thank you, Angela, that I'm coming to you from the unceded territory of the Ganangaraga Nation in what is now Old Montreal, and they are the true custodians of this land. I'm born and raised and educated in Ontario. I'm a lawyer, journalist, and activist. Spent much of my career litigating against the extractive sector. I joined the Green Party about 14 years ago, and one of the things that prompted me to do that was the fourth report of the IPCC, which made me alarmed for the future of my children, Achilles and Lena. In 2012, I began reporting on a pro bono basis for an independent not-for-profit news organization called The Real News. They appointed me the head of their Climate Crisis Bureau. And all of these experiences, they have led me to the conclusion that we need to scale up our climate ambitions. We are confronted by a crisis unlike any that humanity has ever known. Every available financial, legal, and human resource must be brought to bear to resolve this crisis. The stakes are simply too high, and we are the party that is by far best positioned to achieve those ambitions.
Thank you, Dimitri. Next, we have David Marner.
Thank you very much, Angela, to you and to your team. I really appreciate all that you've done to pull us together. I'm coming to you from South Vancouver Island, the traditional territory of the Wisanic, the Sauk, the Sequent, and the Esquimalt First Nations. And the climate emergency has to be the #1 issue for the Green Party going into the next election. It's so great to have this debate because we've been talking about a whole lot of other things, international relations, international human rights, and so on. Very important issues. But the key issue for the Green Party, the way we're going to win seats in the House of Commons, the way we're going to hold the government accountable in Ottawa, is to focus on our greatest strength, which is the climate emergency. What I really believe is that without us in the House of Commons holding the government's feet to the fire, we are not going to see a change in course for Canada and for the government of Canada. And if that doesn't happen, if Canada doesn't become a leader, then we're not going to see the planet addressing the climate emergency in the way it must be done. This is an urgent crisis. On a besoin d'un leader qui est capable de gagner des sièges la première journée, pas quelqu'un qui apprend. On a besoin de quelqu'un qui est capable de connecter avec les groupes environnementaux partout au Canada.
David.
Je suis cette
Next,
personne-là.
Annemie Paul.
Thank you very much, and I'm coming to you from the traditional territories of the Mississauga, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Huron-Wendat. And I joined the Green Party because I consider the climate emergency to be the existential threat of our time, and there is no question about that. I believe that many did, and I believe we're going to find that there's a lot of agreement between the candidates tonight on that. When I think about the climate crisis, and I was thinking about it a lot today, I think about our volunteers out in BC that are choking under the smoke. I think about my family in low-lying islands in the Caribbean that are flooding every year. And it makes me frustrated, it makes me angry. I can't think of a better way to honor all of the people who are suffering and who have died during this period than to take this moment, this chance of a lifetime, to seize it in order to really talk and move towards a green recovery. When we begin to recover, we must move as quickly as possible towards a sustainable green economy that tackles the climate emergency, that allows us to live within our finite resources,
Time's up, Anna.
and that ensures a just society. Thank you.
Thank you.
What happened to the bell, Angela?
You're on.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Amita Kuttner. Thank you so much for having me. I am speaking with you all tonight from the unceded territory of the Slayaaman Nation, also known as Laskiti Island, British Columbia. A reminder that colonialism is ongoing and we all live on sovereign Indigenous land. Another note, I live off-grid and we might be expecting lightning tonight, so if that happens, I have to turn off my power system and duck out. Due to the wildfire smoke, I couldn't breathe this week, and I have a home and a roof over my head. So all I could think about was everybody who doesn't have shelter at home here in Canada and around the world. I have lost my childhood home, my mother, and my family to natural disaster. In the fires this last month, a home that was the place of solace for me after my family home was destroyed, burned down as well. It's time we teach resilience to our communities, to our country, and to the world. So let's talk about solutions and mobilize now together. Thank you.
Thank you, Amita. And finally, Andrew West.
Hello, everyone. I want to be the leader of the Green Party because I want to help the Green Party get elected. I don't see us being an activist party. I see us being a governing party. And I'm so glad that we're having this discussion tonight because we have had discussions on many other subjects, but at the core of what the Green Party is, it's about doing what's best for the environment. And we have great policies that are based on science and fact and what works in other countries. And these are policies that are passed by our members. And these are policies that I know are going to help the environment. But as good as our policies are, they're only going to be so good if they just stay as policies. That's why we need to get elected, to turn our policies into legislation. To win, what we need to do is have a progressive policy that helps the environment and helps people, but also is fiscally responsible. This is our ticket to winning. And I'm a lawyer in Ottawa, and tonight I hope to show you why I should be first or second place on your ballot. Thank you so much.
Thank you to all the candidates. So now we'll get into some questions, and you get 90 seconds per question. So the first question is, how can the Green Party engage Canadians in a way that will force the federal government to take the necessary steps to move Canada rapidly towards a low carbon economy? So we'll begin that question with Andrew.
We as Greens know we have the best policies. And when we run in elections, we're often told we're the smartest bunch, we're the most educated, we're the most passionate, but yet we still have difficulty winning. So what we really need to do to engage Canadians to show that this crisis is important is to really focus on our messaging. Short, sweet messages that really hit home to the point, and not messaging that scares Canadians, messaging that gives them hope. There's lots of ways that we can transition into a green economy that can actually benefit Canadians, even in a place like Alberta, which is so reliant on oil and gas. We're not going to win there if we talk about how destructive they are to the planet or how we're going to just waste all our money. We have to give the right proper messaging. We have to say, look, we know that you've done a lot of work in this for Canada, but your jobs are hurting the environment. So let's take the $60 billion that we put into the oil and gas industry, transition it into the green economy, green energy economy, which is the fastest growing part of the of Canada's economy, and open the door to all these workers to come in if they choose to, so we can actually take serious action on climate change. So for me, it's about having the proper messaging. And I know that all Green candidates will buy into this because we're passionate, we're strong, and we're educated.
Thank you, Andrew. So Annemie, thank you.
Thank you very much, and it's an excellent question. First, I've spoken a lot during this leadership race about issues that people don't consider to be necessarily climate-related issues. But the reason that I've done that is exactly because of the question you've asked. We need allies. We need allies, and we need consistent and permanent pressure on governments and on decision makers if we are going to tackle the climate emergency. And we can't have those allies if they're distracted about how to feed themselves, feed their families, housing, all of their urgent basic needs. And so as a Green Party, we need to demonstrate that we care, we need to demonstrate that we're compassionate, and we need to demonstrate that we are absolutely committed to the progressive social policies that are going to allow us to complete our social safety net and allow everyone to live in dignity so that people have the bandwidth to be able to hear that message. I learned that as a candidate in Toronto Centre in the last election. People who are struggling are not going to be the allies that we need them to be. And then secondly, we need to reflect Canada. If we don't look like Canadians, if the Green Party does not look like the diversity of Canada, our message will not get through. People like to hear messages from people who look like them. And so diversity continues to be one of our greatest barriers to building the coalition of support that we need around this issue. It's something that we need to tackle, and that's how we build the alliances that we need.
Thank you. Amita.
Thank you. Yes, it is a big task that I think we all need to be involved in, engaging Canadians. And there are multiple pieces to it, because I think this is something that we all have to understand is a big deal. And I would like to continue off what Annemie just said. It is impossible for so many people to mobilize when we need it, when their immediate needs are not met. Therefore, we need to make sure everybody has the time to work on the climate emergency by providing them with their basic needs. And we need to be there for each other. On the other side of that too, this is community work. Our strength in the future to be able to get through the climate emergency, to face it and to recover is about building resilient local communities. And in order to communicate with everybody, we need to make it personal. I understand the science and I have a training in scientific communication. And what this has taught me is that it's not always the best idea to just spew facts at people. What you actually need to do is tell stories, communicate from the heart, meet people with compassion and empathy. And we have to make it personal in a way that we are giving people agency for their own futures. Nobody wants to be told what they have to do. They want to be a part of a future that they can believe in. So we need to help people with clear messaging, with strong ideas, and with being personable and being there for them. Bring people back into the process of dreaming about our collective future, and then let's help mobilize on the ground in every community to make sure that we actually build that future together, and that people have the ability also physically with everything going on in their lives to show up, to vote, and to work together.
Thank you. Glenn.
Thanks. So the question was, how do we achieve our targets? Well, it's interesting that Quebec and Ontario, which is about 60% of the Canadian economy, had a set target with a legislated carbon budget of 40% below 1990 Kyoto targets by 2030. Interesting, because if you actually use the federal standard of 2005, that 40% grows to about 60%. And isn't it interesting that the targets that Ontario and Quebec used to have in place were exactly what the Green Party said. And in agreement with business, not attacking business, not attacking Unifor and its leadership, working with them, working with doctors, we got a voluntary and then a legislative agreement to a 4.3% annual reduction, which is unprecedented. And the Air Alliance, was an incredibly important part of achieving that. But we've lost that. So to answer your question, we've got to get Carbon Cure and clean technologies back into cement. We've got to get Nova Corporation back to spending the $2.8 billion they were in their Corona facility to decarbonize. We've got to somehow reconstruct the relationships we had with General Motors and Chrysler that kept the jobs, increased the jobs, and got them to unprecedented levels of reduction. Now, in this party, I'll wrap up with that. Thank you.
I just want to read the question. How can the Green Party engage Canadians in a way that will force the federal government to take the necessary steps to move Canada rapidly towards a low carbon economy? David.
Thank you for repeating the question. It's essential for us to win seats in the House of Commons. If we don't win seats in the House of Commons, we're not going to have influence on the government in Ottawa. So then the question becomes, how are we going to win seats in the House of Commons? And I agree with what Anami said about a movement. We need to build a movement of movements, not just the green movement, you know, Extinction Rebellion, Friday Climate Strikers, the Sierra Clubs, and others across the country. What we need to do is also build a social justice movement, connect up with Black Lives Matter, connect to all the doctors and physicians and the scientists across Canada. We need to build a movement of movements and be the political cutting edge for that movement. Secondly, we need to be organized on the ground. I've crossed the country twice, the only candidate to cross from British Columbia all the way to the Quebec-New Brunswick border. And what I heard in these 2 trips across Canada is we are not organized on the ground. We need to be competent in 338 ridings. Right now, we're competent in 15, maybe 20. And it starts at the top. We need a leader who on day one can campaign in French and in English. We need to break through in Quebec and break through in New Brunswick. We have a foothold in New Brunswick. Let's go from 1 to 4 seats in New Brunswick. It's critical for us to become a competent, winning party. Without that, we're not going to change the direction of the government in Ottawa. We're not going to change the direction of our country, and we're not going to save the planet. The challenge is large, but we have a plan, and I'm the leader who represents that. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Dimitri.
The Harper government, as we all know, set as its emission reduction target a goal of reducing emissions to 30% below 2005 levels by 2030. In opposition, Justin Trudeau's government roundly criticized that pathetically low target and then adopted it. And yesterday on the CBC, the environment minister admitted that we are 77 megatons short of meeting our climate target and claimed that he had a plan, although he didn't lay it out for us, for exceeding the pathetically weak climate target that they adopted from the Harper government. There's a fundamental hypocrisy here, which we must expose. And what's been our principal barrier to getting through to the Canadian public, in my view, is something that Amita, Miriam, and Enemy all touched upon. And that is the insecurity, the job insecurity felt by people who are directly and indirectly dependent upon the fossil fuels industry. We absolutely have to provide them the assurance that they will not be left behind. They feel betrayed after years of promises. The liberalized trade regime would produce more jobs. It didn't. It caused a flight of good paying jobs. So I think we need to provide them a 5-year jobs guarantee. A guaranteed livable income is absolutely essential. The declaration of housing is a human right and massive investment in social housing throughout our country. And we need to create, as Avi Lewis argued, a reclamation jobs boom in Alberta by holding the fossil fuels industry accountable for the cleanup of orphaned wells.
Miriam?
Okay, so yes, how do we engage Canadians into decarbonizing the economy? We need to make them dream about something achievable, and that requires a plan of decarbonizing our economy by 2030 if we want to give a shot to my generation, the next one. We need to make sure that we don't leave anybody behind. And it's pretty much a question of presenting that we are going to bring some change and not maintain the status quo that has been ongoing for the past decades. Change will solve all our problems, okay? And if we create jobs, okay, if we present to those fossil fuel workers more sustainable, more healthy jobs that are unionized with benefits and a guaranteed livable income, why would they not want to leave their unsustainable and unhealthy jobs for these ones? So it's a question of presenting things and giving people hope that it's something that is achievable in an inspiring way. And it's a question of in our messaging, of course. I know David mentioned that we need to cooperate with NGOs. Yes, we need to talk to grassroots movements, something that the Green Party was never able to do. And we need to build a plan, a Green New Deal. This is the bold plan that everybody is waiting for. But it requires political courage because it's a question of rethinking our economy for it to care for the planet and for each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Courtney.
Thank you. So we are living in the middle of a global pandemic, and it is being caused by a virus that started at the intersection of animals and humans. And it's therefore the biggest proof point we've ever had about the need to take urgent action to protect health by managing the intersection of humans and the rest of the natural world. Climate change is the biggest health issue of the 21st century, according to the Lancet, according to the World Health Organization, but nobody knows that. The Canadian Medical Association did polling before the 2019 election that showed that climate and health were number 1 and number 2, depending on people's stats, but people hadn't realized they were the same. We can be the party that connects those and lets people know that the basic needs that they are currently so anxious about. I've spent the pandemic at the bedside at 2 a.m. People are worried about their housing, about their jobs, about their families. They're anxious. They want safety and they want health. We can provide health now with a guaranteed basic income and ensure health into the future by stabilizing the climate. But we need to communicate to people that that's what it is. And we need an overall goal, which I believe should be a well-being economy that knits it all together so that the goal is clear and we get there in an evidence-based way. I believe that cohesive narrative at this moment of real instability and transition will be what motivates both Canadians and parliamentarians to create change.
Thank you, Courtney. Okay, question number 2. Every major political party now says it is concerned about climate change and will address it if they form government. The Liberals say they want Canada to be carbon neutral by 2050. Why do voters need the Green Party for leadership on this issue? Amita.
Thank you. Yes, I think this gets to the heart of a really big issue that the Green Party has to contend with at this point, which is that to most people, other parties now have legitimate climate plans. And there is no way for most people to know, given the available scientific and climate literacy out there, that their plans are actually completely useless. And that the way that they're actually going to account for their plans are dependent on international markets that don't hold up and that will actually end us up in a lot of more trouble. So it is our responsibility to do something about this, but it also means that we need to grow and learn in our communication so that we aren't just standing up there and saying to people in a way that they cannot hear that we know better, because that's not the sort of thing that lands. So we are necessary because nobody else is good enough, but instead we need to make sure that we actually build a movement that will get everybody on board. And that does come to actually talking to people's actual experiences here and there, what they're going through, attending to people's daily needs, etc. And I think also we do need to get better at pushing on the plans that people actually put forward in detail, explaining exactly how it is that they're trying to account in their plans and why their targets are inappropriate when the world is already burning. We have no time. So therefore, we need to move as fast as we can, and anyone else's targets are not good enough, and we hold the key to the future.
Thank you, Amita. Dimitri.
I actually think that most Canadians understand that the Liberals and the Conservatives do not have adequate plans and are not serious about putting forward a set of solutions which will rise to the moment and address this existential crisis. They've seen that the Harper government and the Trudeau government have consistently missed weak climate targets. They've seen that they have absolutely no political will to end fossil fuel subsidies, that they are prepared to invest massively in infrastructure for the fossil fuels industry when we know that we should be winding down this industry as rapidly as possible. I really believe that the fundamental obstacle to persuading Canadians to support the kinds of transformational changes we need is the issue of economic security. It is absolutely essential that we counter the argument of the fossil fuels industry and big business in this country that we cannot have a robust and healthy economy without dependence upon the fossil fuels industry. And so I'll come back to what I said earlier. I think it bears repeating. We need to give them a jobs guarantee. We need to invest massively in renewable energy and public transportation, retrofitting buildings. These things will create hundreds of thousands of jobs. We need to constantly remind Canadians that for every dollar of investment in renewable energy, significantly more employment is created than for every dollar of investment in fossil fuels. We will have their back, the workers of this country. We will stand with them. We must enlist them as allies in this fight. They know that the Liberals and the Conservatives have no real plan to deal with the climate crisis, and all we need to ensure them is that they won't be left behind.
Glenn?
Thanks. I think I would agree largely with what's been said, but one of the things that I think is very frustrating is the sense that it's impossible and we can't, well, the policies and the ideas are good, but somehow this is impossible. And the reason earlier, Angela, that I answered the question the way I did is because Ontario and Quebec already did it with a 4.3% reduction annually. Massive investments in transit, rapid transit showing up in Kitchener, Ottawa, industrial facilities across the province decarbonizing at an unprecedented rate. Every ton of concrete that Carbon Cure is used on makes it carbon neutral. We were actually at about a 20% reduction in Ontario had we continued to the end of the 5-year cycle, with industry wanting to continue after the government canceled the program. So part of what we have to tell Canadians is, in a large part of the country, we were tracking. Now we have to get to 9% because we've got so much time. So I think part of it is we've got to show that during the periods of time in which those provinces that used to be reducing, and they were Nova Scotia, Quebec, and Ontario, that were tracking to sufficient levels of reduction, investments in public transit, massively retrofitting buildings, decarbonizing their industrial and fuel base. That was actually happening. It was actually canceled, and 758 renewable energy projects were canceled by the Conservatives and replaced with $2.8 billion in natural gas fossil fuels, which is almost as bad as coal. So we can't forget that we were winning, and we got to get back to winning again.
Thank you. Anami.
Thank you very much. And it's a great question, Angela. It's actually something that it's a little exercise I play with myself, which is, what if the other parties just, eat our lunch? They just swallow our climate policies whole. Then what? What are we here for? And I would say the answer is, well, we had those policy ideas first. The Green Party is the party of innovation. We're the party of daring. We're the party that puts these ideas into the political discourse first, even when we're howling alone in the wilderness. We would not be talking about, reforming our orphan oil wells, for instance, a national energy grid, investments in retrofits, all these things, if Greens had not been talking about these things for decades. And so we will always play that role, and it is essential. I would also say credibility. The Liberals, the Conservatives, it's a cycle and over again of broken promises. The Greens have been credible. We've been consistent. We can be trusted. And it really will come down to that. It will come down to, who do people in Canada trust to guide us through this next period toward a green recovery with compassion and with the very best plan. And there is no doubt to me that that is the Green Party of Canada.
Thank you. Courtney.
Thanks. And I also agree with a lot of what has been said, particularly what Amita said about the fact that the other parties' plans simply don't work. And we have a great example in that our greenhouse gases are continuing to go up. Whereas, for instance, in the UK, they've gone down by about 40% since 1990. So we know it's possible. It's important that we choose points of differentiation between us and other parties. LNG is a good example. LNG is made from what has been called natural gas, which is a miracle of branding. It's methane, which can otherwise be referred to as a super pollutant. And in Canada, we know that about 70% of that comes from fracking. Fracking has been banned in lots of other countries for really good reasons. It is understudied, and what we do know about it is that there are red flags in terms of health, whether you're looking at air pollution or water pollution or other issues. In Canada, we've done almost no research on that. However, that becomes a huge opportunity for us to point out that all of these parties are supporting a type of fuel that isn't a transitional fuel. It leads to local contamination for communities. It's going to lead to both polluted water and climate disaster. That's the kind of really focused communicating we need to do, and we just need to find 3 of those, hammer them home, and make sure people understand.
Miriam.
Okay, so the Liberals have been lying to us, and the Conservatives and the Liberals have the interest of the oligarchy at heart and not us. And they will never make the choices necessary for our interests. The Trudeau government wasn't even able to plant their trees, the ones that they were talking about during the last election. And the reason given by them to us to not decarbonize our economy are the job loss. Okay, there are about 900,000 jobs that would be lost from the fossil fuel industry. And we need to present a plan that leaves no one behind and make sure everyone has dignity in the process. So we need to show that we stand up for the labor and for the youth, and we need to show that we are their champion.
Thank you. Andrew.
When Canadians vote, they think about many things, including the environment, but they turn to other parties because they think that the other parties will also address their other needs and concerns. And that's why we have to separate ourselves from those other parties. There's lots of people who vote for the Conservative Party that think they're a fiscally responsible party, which they're not. But people also care about the environment, family farmers, conservationists. So we need to show them that we're a fiscally responsible party to attract them to the party. We also need to show ourselves that we are different from the Liberals. The Liberals time and time again prove that they do not tell the truth. They will say whatever they need to get elected. And that's what concerns me about a couple of candidates in this race, because we have people in this race that have run to be the leader of a Liberal party. And I don't say that to be insulting. I truly don't. I say that out of a genuine concern that they're kind of talking about changing the Green Party to be more like the Liberal Party. And they just won't be able to stand up to the public to say that we're different from the Liberal Party. I can tell the people who vote in the next election, don't listen to the Liberals. Don't trust them. They've had their opportunities. Trust us. Give the Green Party the chance to win or vote and to show you that we can truly pass meaningful policies that will both help the environment and the economy.
And David.
Thank you. I love that line, Miriam, about the oligarchy. That's the best line of the debate as far as I'm concerned. And that's the problem we have with the Conservatives and the Liberals, is people can see that. They can see that the Liberals in 2015 campaigned on cutting fossil fuels to zero. Remember that promise? Now Canada subsidizes fossil fuel more per capita than any other country in the OECD. Say one thing during election time, do the opposite in government, and that is typical of the Liberals. And I'd say the same thing about the NDP. They campaigned on the Green New Deal in the 2019 election. I was a candidate here in Esquimalt, Saint-Estève. The NDP were very proud of the Green New Deal. And then look at what Jagmeet Singh says when he comes back to the House of Commons in November of last year. His top 7 priorities, not one priority relates to the environment. So the key thing that differentiates the Greens is our consistent stance since 1983 of putting the environment, the future of human civilization, ending mass species extinction as our #1 priority. The second thing that differentiates us is we have always been more progressive than the NDP, the Liberals, or the Conservatives. Our plan will leave no one behind. We're the only party that's campaigned on a guaranteed livable income. It looks like the NDP and the Liberals are going to copy that too. Good on them. But let's point out to Canadians that we were first on equal marriage. We were first on guaranteed livable income. We were first on national pharmacare. We were first on free tuition for trade school, college, and university. And let's show Canadians that we will hold the other parties to account. That's a key role for the Greens. We may not win a majority next time, but if you put us in a minority government, you know climate action will be #1.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Okay, I just want to remind all the candidates that you have a 30-second rebuttal, one 30-second rebuttal throughout the debate. I wonder if anybody wants to jump in on this one.
I don't, Angela, but I'm not hearing your bell, so can you make sure you ring the bell?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nobody wants to rebut? Do you want to lift your hand? Okay. Let's go to question number 3.
Just clarity, it's 1 period, not 1 per round. It's just 1.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we can have some flexibility, but for timing, we just thought let's do 1, open the floor, just get a bit going. Okay, 3rd question. Oh, so Annemie, would you like to, okay, we'll go to the 3rd question. And we'll let Annemie respond to that first question first and then give her closing remarks because Annemie has to leave the debate. So the 3rd question is, how would you talk to oil sector workers in Alberta and the Maritimes who are afraid that Green Party policies will wind down the oil industry and cause them to lose their jobs? Anami, sorry.
Thank you very much for that question. I've mentioned many times during the campaign that my brother, up until very recently, worked in the oil patch in Alberta as a roughneck. And so it's a very personal question to me. And I remember in my first conversation, my first interview, I said I would never support a party that I didn't believe had a credible plan for oil and gas workers. And I believe that the Green Party does. You know, we need to first and foremost remember that we're dealing with human beings and honor the contribution they've made to our economy. We realize the damage we've done now, but these workers did their work sincerely for many years, and our country was built upon their work. So we thank them for that. And then we talk about a better, brighter future. Green jobs in the green economy, they pay more, they're safer, they let those workers go home at night, and they use the existing skill of oil and gas workers so that they can be taken up on day one. And I want to see our government using the money that they're going to be putting into a stimulus to make sure that they're investing in the sectors that are going to create jobs for those workers. And we also want to make sure that they understand again that our plan is one that sets them up for the future, and that also is a plan of compassion. And so my brother wants one of those. Oh, sorry, I don't hear the bell at all.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm not doing the bells loud enough.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I didn't hear it at all. Sorry.
Yeah, if you could just wrap up in one sentence.
Sure, yes. You know, and I will tell you that my brother and every single person on the crew that works with him will take those jobs if those jobs are there for them.
Okay, thank you, Anami. And I know you have to leave early, so would you like to give a closing statement? Maybe
Yes,
30
yes.
seconds?
Yes, I'm very sorry to have to leave early. It is Rosh Hashanah. It's one of our most important holidays, and I'm already in trouble with the family. So I just wanted to just reflect, you know, this is a wonderful discussion, but often I feel that Greens and that people who are active in the climate community, that we're speaking to ourselves in an echo chamber. The question that Angela, you asked is really the crux of it. Are we going to be able to reach outside of our party and build the relationships, the alliances that we're going to need to put the consistent pressure on decision makers to really accelerate our transition toward a green economy? This is something that we have tried to demonstrate throughout this race. You know, I'm helping to create a new generation of young Black environmental activists in inner city neighborhoods here in Toronto, and young Black policy activists on the environment. That's the kind of work that we need to be doing. And so the Green Party will make the breakthrough. It will build those alliances if we reach outside of our party and truly diversify. Thank you so much for having me here this evening.
Thank you so much for coming, Anami. Sorry you have to go.
Bye. Bye,
Good luck.
everyone.
Okay, Glenn.
Okay, so we only get one rebuttal, so I'm going to try and weave some of the things. Andrew, I have been in the room with CEOs of large and small companies, and I negotiated with them and unions unprecedented yet in the world reductions in greenhouse gas over 4 years, and designed cap and trade programs that are joint in California, Quebec, binationally, en français and en anglais. If you don't think that's valuable and you're going to dismiss that because I used to be a liberal, then you're dismissing about half the members of our party. And you don't think, after the comments that Dimitri's made about Unifor and Jerry Dias, who I talked to, that we don't have some bridges to build? You don't think when we say oil is dead and before we don't have the courtesy
Okay, your rebuttal is over.
I'm not rebutting, I'm answering the question.
Oh, okay, okay, thank you. Sorry.
Because it's the experience you asked for. So how do you work with it? I worked with the oil and gas sector. I was chosen as the CEO of the Pembina Institute. I work with the oil and gas sector. I worked on the National Roundtable with CEOs. I think that a socialist perspective is important in our party, but I think the kind of language and rhetoric we're doing. So when we say oil is dead and we don't talk to Unifor, we don't talk to the democratically elected folks, we don't talk to the sector that I have relationships with. We're going to have a really rough ride in the next few years if we don't actually start to build better relationships.
Thank you. So that was not a rebut. So you still have a rebuttal anytime, Glenn. Okay, Dimitri.
Well, it's interesting. I didn't make the remark about Glenn being a liberal, but Glenn mentioned my comments about Unifor, so let me clarify. You know, last year I was in Oshawa to defend the workers of Oshawa at the GM plant and called for the nationalization of that plant and its conversion to renewable energy purposes. I didn't see you there, Glenn. You know, I've been endorsed by Sid Ryan, a former NDP candidate, former president of the Ontario Federation of Labor, who said that I have the best workers' rights platform that he's seen in his lifetime, far better than anything that the federal NDP or any provincial NDP has produced. You know, my comments about Jerry Diaz are directed to the fact that he is hostile to the LEAP manifesto, which our party has endorsed. I have no quarrel with the workers of Unifor, absolutely none. I consider them brothers and sisters like all workers in this country. What I'm concerned about is that their leadership seems to be hostile to a truly transformative agenda and the creation of a green economy. And ultimately, I'll come back to what I said at the outset. I think it bears repeating. I'm very happy to see many other candidates now embracing what I've been saying at the very outset of this leadership race, that we have to be the champion of Canadian workers. It's absolutely essential to the success of our agenda. Our 6 core values are intertwined. We are not only a party of the environment, we understand that all of these values work together. Social justice, respect for diversity, participatory democracy, nonviolence, sustainability, ecological wisdom. The Global Greens movement has understood from the outset that this is an integrated whole, and that's the kind of message that we need to convey to Canadians.
Thank you, Dimitri. Courtney.
Thank you. And I think that the coronavirus pandemic is going to help us a little bit get out of the locked position that we were in, because prior, it's true, we in the environmental movement did not consider jobs enough. I was at COP a couple of years ago on behalf of Kate, and the entire theme was around just transition. And I thought to myself, we have not talked about that. So we were late to that conversation, and we have ground to make up. And we have been doing better. But when we think about where we're at right now, we've gone from a place where we needed to talk about a just transition to a place where we need to talk about a great transition. And that's why I think we are in some ways set up well, because we're already talking about a guaranteed basic income. We're likely to be able to get it implemented from what we're hearing. And we also are about to spend tremendous amounts of stimulus money, whether we're looking at, encouraging electric vehicles, building refits. And so I think that keeping the lines of dialogue open, making sure we're compassionate in all of our conversation. I have a friend who had to evacuate out after Fort McMurray with her toddler past wildfires and wanted to get into clean energy, but it took her 1.5 years to do it. And so if we can provide on-ramps into those new economies, people will accept our message. It's about reassuring people that they will be safe to be able to put food on the table for their kids now and into the future.
Sorry, Andrew. I was muted.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
So if I do run out of time, I'll probably use a rebuttal on this, but just to comment real quickly on what Glenn said. Again, it's not personal, but there's a difference between people who have voted for the Liberal Party and had even memberships in the Liberal Party than with you and David, who actually ran to be leaders of Liberal parties. And again, we're not a party that endorses cap and trade. We're a party that endorses fee and dividend. This is something that over 3,500 economists in the Wall Street Journal said last year is the best way to curb carbon emissions for a price on carbon. This is something that the Green Party members have passed, and that's what I respect. With respect to Alberta, the first thing that I would do, and this might sound shocking, is I would thank them. Thank them for the work that they've done. And I've been clear on this throughout the campaign on this, because a lot of the programs that we have in Canada were being paid for from all the work that was done in the oil and gas industry. But we have to tell them, as much as you've helped Canada, the work that you're continuing to do is going to hurt the environment. So let's take the $60 billion that's in the oil and gas industry and transition that into the green economy, which again is the fastest growing sector of the economy. But Albertans don't need to be preached to. They just need to show that we have their best interest in mind. And when we present a policy, a platform that's strong on the environment and fiscally responsible, they buy in. That's the position, that's the platform we had in 2008. And in that election, the strongest area the strongest region that the Green Party had support in was Alberta.
Andrew, would you like to use your 30-second rebuttal now?
No, I think I just wrapped up just in time. Thank you.
Super, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for asking.
David,
Thank you. The question was, how would we explain to Albertans why they should vote Green and why they should support our agenda? And I'm a native Albertan. I was born in Edmonton. I went to University of Alberta, did a master's in political science there. I share a cabin with a cousin, Glenn, who is a welder on the TMX pipeline. And this summer we got together at the cabin, and the first thing he said to me was, David, I'm so glad you're not wearing your sandals and your tie-dye today, because he knew I was running for the leadership of the Greens. And we had a really good conversation. He's extremely conservative, but you know, he would love to get out of welding pipelines. It's hot in the summer, cold in the winter, and he wants his 3 kids to have a different future. So we talked about it. I said, you know, we have a free tuition plan. You could use your skills. He's an excellent welder. You could use your skills on solar panels or wind. You know, town of Raymond, Alberta has gone all solar on its infrastructure. South Alberta is entirely powered by wind south of Lethbridge. Hinton, Alberta is leading the way on geothermal. There's lots of jobs there, Glenn, and you can get trained at NAIT, Northern Alberta Institute of Technology will pay for it, and will guarantee an annual income for you during that time. So you can still drive your 3 kids to hockey. They're all playing hockey. So that's how I talk to folks in Alberta. And I think it resonates. And I think as well, and I'm going to use my 30-second of rebuttal here to add 30 seconds, if you don't mind, Angela.
Yeah, okay.
I do think that the discourse that we're hearing from Andrew, and actually so many of the other candidates in this race, which is a polarizing discourse, focusing on our differences, not focusing on how we build together. I mean, it's a terrible political strategy, Andrew, to say, we don't want liberals to come into our party. We don't trust them. Or we don't want red Tories who are now being led by a man who's as conservative and socially conservative as Stephen Harper. We should be opening our arms up to the red Tories, to the liberals, and to the NDP. You know, folks like Dimitri are doing a great job, Miriam are doing a great job to reaching out to NDP folks and bringing them over by campaigning on socialist and eco-socialist platform. Let's welcome everybody in. That should be the future of the Green Party. And we need a uniter in our party, not a divider, Andrew. We need somebody who can pull everybody together into a strong team. And we all have a role. You have a role as our fiscal conservative. We all have a role. And let's work together to build a party that can actually win seats. Division is not going to get us there, Andrew. Unity is. And that's what's critical in this race. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Amita.
Thank you. Yes, I'm just going to start off and be blunt here. This discourse is frustrating. I've lost my family, the world's on fire and flooding, and here we are having an argument. It is important that we work together, we get on the same page, we don't insult each other. We have to be working together in this. That's what matters. So on that, what do you think it's like when you are working in the only job that is there, that has ever been provided for you, where you've been given the opportunity to provide for your family, and you're told that it's your fault that the world is burning? It's a horrible place to be in. And yet every solution that is ever proposed is done in a condescending manner. Here's your new opportunity. Here's the new thing. And by the way, the transition is going to be awful because we're not providing you enough. What is needed is a conversation of agency to push past that false dichotomy and the only options ever given to any community, especially Indigenous nations, that the jobs and economy are against the environment. Our future as people needs to be knit back into nature in a way that we flourish together. But in order to communicate, we have to address people's very legitimate fears. The only thing anyone's ever been told is they're responsible for their own future and safety and survival, and we can't. We have to build community and get ready, provide options for economy and meaningful work going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam.
Sorry about that, Amita, but I have to address whatever happened a bit earlier, and it might be polarizing what I say, but I think it's necessary. I just find, Andrew, that I believe that you're just like the other centrists, okay? And all the ones in this leadership race that advocate for eco-capitalism are dangerous for my generation and the next ones. So you guys represent the status quo. Capitalism destroys ecosystems, and it's true, we have to rethink everything and go back to nature, right? Okay, so I've personally, now that let me talk about the fossil fuel industry. So I've personally talked to the sector. I've met with Iron and Earth, an organization operating out of Alberta, advocating for a job transition. And there are plenty of oil workers who want clean, healthy jobs. So we should give them a job guarantee that will help everybody in this transition to a green economy. And these workers would be excellent for retrofitting jobs, for example.
Thank you. Okay. Now we're going to do a lightning round.
I do have a rebuttal. I do
Oh,
a
thank
rebuttal
you.
now.
Rebuttal.
Yes,
Who is that? David, go. Wait, David, you've already had a rebuttal.
It's Andrew.
it's
Oh,
Andrew.
it's Andrew. Thank you.
Rebutting David.
Go, Andrew.
So just to re-clarify the comments that I made is I've been talking throughout this campaign of being more welcoming to everyone who's been in different parties, the NDP, the Liberals, and the Conservatives. Welcoming people, because I've said many times, to handle the climate crisis, it's going to take all hands on deck. What I said, my comments were, is that I'm concerned about a couple candidates that are talking about bringing liberal ideas who have been leadership contestants for the Liberal Party and not being able to stand up to the Liberals the way that I can and say, we are different. That's the wording that I said. I've been clear. I was clear on that. I wasn't saying I am very welcoming. I want people to come into this party, as many people as I can, because that's the way that the Green Party is going to win and form government.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay. So now we're going to our lightning round, and I'll just explain it.
Glenn is waving his hand.
Glenn is sorry. Go, Glenn.
Muted.
Oh, yep, you're muted.
So I talk to these folks. I work with Jerry. I work with people. I know the blue-green people. I work in the clean tech sector. And it may be unintentional, but we are sending a lot of messages that isn't a big tent party. If you're going to go and say you're going to dismantle capitalism, then maybe you need to talk to Tom Rand and Toby Heaps about that. If you want to talk about just transition, then work with the labor unions, which I work with and talk to, because there is a lot of room for all of us in this party. But we have to, it's our relationships with all of the business, labor, and community groups that we have. And I talk to them, and I would invite my colleagues just to phone Jerry. You know, if you've said something about him, talk to him and see what he says to you.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you, Glenn.
Okay.
Probably enough, Jerry.
Oh, I hear an echo. Okay, now we're going to the lightning round. So just a heads up, we're going to go thumbs up, 100% yes, you agree with the question. Thumbs down, 100% no. Thumbs sideways for not sure or pass. So I realize these questions are complex. So if you're only 80% yes, take it at an angle, or 80% no, take it at an angle, but at least it gives us a sense where you stand. And hold up your thumbs for about 5 seconds, please. Okay, we've only got 4 questions here. Would you support requiring all new cars and light trucks to be electric by 2030? Great. Would you support phasing out all oil and gas production by 2040? Okay. Would you oppose federal spending on new nuclear power technologies? Where's your question? Oh, the question was, would you oppose federal spending on new nuclear power technologies? And next question. The federal government just announced today a by-election in Toronto Centre and York Spadina for October 26th. Assuming you would remain a leadership candidate, would you consider also running in this by-election?
Which by-election? Either one? Because you said two by-elections. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, we're on to question number 4. Whoops. Okay, youth. Youth have been a growing and powerful voice in the climate debate, yet many feel disenchanted with politics. How would you engage with the thousands of young people who are so alarmed about the climate crisis? And we'll begin with Dimitri.
you know, I've had many wonderful opportunities to interact with young people during the course of this campaign. And by the way, I too traveled from BC to the eastern part of Quebec, as David did, and I had you know, extraordinary interactions. And what I've sensed over and over again, and you know, the younger candidates in this race, you know, Miriam and Amita, foremost amongst them, have talked about this, is the immense frustration that young people feel about the betrayals, you know, of the older generations who have had the opportunity to resolve the climate emergency, but again and again have resorted to incrementalism, a kind of, you know, a desire to hew close to the center, but not move beyond the politics of the mainstream. And they want to see radical change. And, you know, radical, it's interesting to note, the origin of that term is getting to the root of things. We've come to understand that to mean some form of extremism, but actually it means understanding the true causes of things. And by that measure, we are a radical party. And I'd like us to go back to our own roots and to say, we are going to put forward a bolder program than anything Canada has seen in Parliament in our lifetimes. And that means that we are going to address forcefully the problem of inequality, job insecurity. We are going to recognize that it is this economic system which is the core cause of the climate crisis, and we're going to transform it into one that is fundamentally committed to sustainability, democracy, peace, and equality. And it's none of those things right now. And that's what young people want. They want a bold program that goes to the heart of the matter.
Thank you. Andrew.
Can you just repeat the question, please?
Sure. Youth have been providing a powerful voice for the climate debate, yet many are disenchanted by politics. How would you engage the thousands of youth in the climate crisis?
One thing I've experienced is we don't have a problem with attracting youth. We have a problem with keeping the youth, because exactly that. There's so much cynicism in politics today. And when as long as politicians keep promising and promising and not delivering, there's going to continue to be this cynicism. So that's why we need to be able to show that the Green Party is an honest, transparent party, different from the other parties, and stand out from them. That's very important. I have spent the last few years, when I've been, you know, around my community, talking to grade 10 civics classes. And I encourage every Green Party member every Green Party EDA at least, to try to come out, reach out to the communities the way that I have, and talk to them and show them exactly what the Green Party stands for and how we relate to them. And it's an opportunity to not only listen to what their concerns are, but it's also an opportunity to share how the Green Party can relate to them. So it's about sharing to the young youth that we actually have bold policy plans, but we also care about their futures, and we'll invest in programs for jobs and youth employment to make sure that they're taken care of, because so many of them are worried about going to post-secondary school because of the debt that they're going to incur. We need to make sure that we start paying for education and make sure we pay for proper training and skills so that they have jobs when they need them. Thank you.
Thank you. Miriam.
Oh, well, yeah, I think we need to give them control. So I am a young person, give me control. I think it's important to get representation there. I think it's important to be inspiring. I think it's important to give interviews in alternative media and podcasts. I know a lot of young people listen, go for alternative medias to get information, because they do have a mistrust of politicians, regular traditional medias. We can also, as the Green Party of Canada, encourage the youth instead of keeping them from joining the party. Just like I've been fighting very much for the free youth membership, something that the party promised and voted on. The Federal Council voted on that and never implemented it during this leadership race, instead of actually taking this opportunity of having me and Amita, great candidates and inspiring, to actually get a bunch of people in. So we should be welcoming instead of actually keep on going with the status quo and doing everything that it takes to actually keep from change happening. It's an evolution. We need to go ahead and go with the wave. Thank you.
Thank you. Glenn.
I remember standing out in front of City Hall when I was about 20 in my 20s, at the beginning of the AIDS epidemic, when the health minister was causing AIDS a moral issue, not a health issue, and protesting. And I looked at a friend of mine and said, this is democracy. Why are we standing outside the government buildings? Why don't we run and take it over? And I ran at 32 and I got elected to city council, and I learned and I eventually became mayor. But I think we've got a bigger challenge. I think you have to lower voting age. I think you have to think about maybe some more radical ideas of what we don't have anywhere in this country, which is a carbon budget, that we actually limit the amount of pollution and resources that each generation can leave, and that there's penalties for governments that don't do it. Maybe we need a youth assembly or part of parliament that's dedicated exclusively to population and membership by younger people. Maybe each political party has to have a formula that guarantees that. But we can legislate, because we are now using 9 planets' resources in this generation. So let's actually make it illegal to use more than one planet's resources at a time. Let's actually deal and legislate intergenerational equity and look at new models that haven't happened anywhere in the world. But the first thing that we can start doing is carbon and polluting and resource budgeting that would allow, would ensure that each generation at least has the resources to live, and we can halt the ecological destruction. But we have to think way outside the box on this. And I agree with Dimitri on this. We got to put the rad back in radical on this and really be inventive. And that's not just being young, we all share that responsibility.
Thank you. Amita.
Thank you. Yes, so as somebody who is technically youth under the party's definition for a few more months, I want to say from me personally, getting involved in politics is honestly trash. So I can say that it's not fun. And if it's not fun, then we're not going to keep anybody. So it goes beyond just the fact that, you know, maybe we're cynical about the world, but that's not really what it comes down to. It comes down to young people showing up and being mistreated. It comes down to young people seeing what politics is like and being like, nope, I'm walking the other way. Why would I want to walk into that environment? And then when they show up to the party itself, they're not treated well. So the first thing that we have to do is guarantee people's safety and inclusion and make sure we're actually creating a space of belonging. The other thing that we need is radical honesty. We're done hearing platitudes about the fact that politics is okay. We know what it's like, but anyone telling us or not listening to us or not treating us with respect make us want to leave. Because why, with all the other barriers, would we want to stay there? I am overwhelmingly proud of my campaign and everything that we have become, because honestly, it's mostly people younger than me. And we are here to make this space our own in the way we want. And it's our future. And we all actually have different prospects and a different outlook than the generations that have come before us.
Thank you. Courtney. Oh, you're muted.
I want to start by just really echoing and supporting what Amita said about making sure that the party is safe. We've heard stories about youth being asked to door knock, unchaperoned, with men who haven't had criminal record checks. We need to follow the same procedures that any basic day camp follows, that any government or recreational institution follows, to make sure we're being responsible with our youth. And we need to make sure we listen to them. I've been really lucky. I learned about climate change about a decade ago. I was a new doc. It hadn't been part of my curricula. It was already supposed to be the biggest climate change risk of the 21st century. I got really mad. And I've helped to actually ignite an international movement to get it into curricula, along with the International Federation of Medical Students Associations, which has meant that I've worked with some of the best and brightest young doctors in the world. What they say is that we're too young to know what's impossible, so we do it anyway. And those new eyes have essentially just drawn the entire sector along. And those of us who are older just kind of try to keep up and open doors where we can and, you know, input a little bit of wisdom, but we have gotten so much done. So really, this is us harnessing the wisdom of all of the different generations, the energy we bring, the skills we bring. And what I love the most about it is that it's incredibly fun. So I really endorse everything we can do to get more youth into the party, and I truly look forward to it.
Thank you. David.
Thank you. I agree with what Courtney said and Amita said. They're right about this. We need to be more welcoming to youth, to create safe spaces. We did that in our 2019 campaign. We had a program which designed by youth called Paint the Island Green. We brought 30 young Canadians from the Atlantic to the Pacific all together. They taught us a lot about social media and so on. We taught them stuff about how to make a phone call and to get a vote. And it worked perfectly, and I'd love to roll it out across the country and create safe spaces for young people to come in and really become a vibrant part of our party, because the best way to reach out to young people is to have young people leading the way, doing the outreach. Second thing is the leader needs to play a personal role, and that's what I've done in this campaign. The only leadership candidate to go from university to university, all the way from University of Victoria in January east to McGill and University of Montreal, holding debates, holding discussions, and also listening to people's concerns. I agree with everything else that's been said. We need very strong, brave, radical policy that inspires youth. We need youth to be leaders in our organization. I plan, if I become leader, to appoint a deputy leader who is a young Green, and I do it in my own campaign. It's easy to talk, but look at what we've actually done. My campaign manager is a young Green, my financial agent's a young Green, my whole phone team is young Greens. The only people paid on my campaign are young Greens. Let's elect a leader who leads by example. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're on to our fifth and last. Oh, Amita has a rebuttal.
Yes, thank you. I just want to end on talking about a couple things that we really need for youth engagement. And one is to say, we need to stop the tokenism. We need to stop talking about youth as others. We need dignity and respect, and to be treated like normal people, to exist in a space and be okay. We face a system that marginalizes, that oppresses, and with all the questions of intersectionality that come up, it's really important to keep that in mind. People see a different world now, and we experience microaggressions. And honestly, I've faced a lot of this from other people in this leadership race. And so it's kind of insulting sometimes to hear talk of inclusion when current harm is still being done. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other rebuttals? Okay. Oh, Miriam.
Okay, so amen, Amita. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Okay, that is, now we're on to the last question of the debate. And after that, we'll do closing statements. So the last question. What tools does the federal government have to tackle the climate crisis and drive a green transition that they're not currently using? And we'll start with Miriam.
Everything. They're not demonstrating any kind of political courage. They're not doing what it takes to actually decarbonize our economy by 2030. We have to absolutely phase out from fossil fuels by 2030 to give 100% chance for my generation and the next ones for not suffering from an extinction. So for sure, everything must be done. And it's a question of, we have to rethink our economy. I've repeated it many, many times. It's not about losing our quality of life. It's about giving back to the people, having the interest of the people at heart instead of having the interest of the few. That's pretty much what needs to be done. Political courage and audacity. And I think it's bold. Audacity, is it the word in English? Probably, maybe not. No. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Audacity, we need the bold plan. Let's go, okay, and be inspiring. And I'm sure we can replace any politicians and the bad decisions that have been taken for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Glenn.
So lots of things. One is the only government that control materials and packaging standards, which is 50% of greenhouse gas emissions, is the federal government. So I'd immediately want packaging standards and material standards, and that they require every year an increase in the amount of materials that have to be come from recovered rather than extracted resources. We could eliminate probably in 10 years 50% of greenhouse gases if the federal government only do that. Immediately eliminate all fossil fuel subsidies. No one could do that more quickly than they could. Guaranteed work and careers for young people. Implement the guaranteed livable plan, the End Poverty Plan, which will give every student $9,240. It will raise every senior out of poverty. It will take 6 million Canadians within a balanced budget by redirecting most of our fiscal expenditures that goes to corporations. They could do that in 30 days and end poverty in Canada. And then young people would be able to fully participate in politics if they chose to. But I also want to say, when I went into politics, it was awful. And sometimes we have to face it down to create safe places. And well, I don't disagree with Amita, because I actually think she's one of those people who is wading in to create safe places for others. But we do have to stare down that ugliness. But I have to support Amita, and we support each other. I really want to give her a shout out, because we've got to give it. But that's all of that. But here's my problem. We've got to be this. Okay, I guess I won't have time to finish that, but okay, thank you.
Okay. Courtney? Oh, you're muted. Oh, and I'll read the question again while you unmute yourself. What tools does the federal government have to tackle the climate crisis and drive a green transition that they are not currently using?
Thanks. And as someone just said, everything. So number one, access to themselves and to their staff. So the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives audited visits to federal decision makers over a number of years and found that they were having 5 times as many meetings with lobbyists as with NGOs. We can mandate a change in that. Jane Philpott, when she was creating the food guide, said, we're not going to have meetings with anybody who's associated with the food and beverage industry, because that's a clear conflict of interest. We can do the same thing for climate legislation, or at the minimum, mandate a 1-to-1 ratio in terms of visits for our decision makers and their staff. We know that cognitive biases impact people's decision making once they meet and trust people. So that's one thing we can do. Number two, I love what Glenn said about carbon budgets. The Climate Accountability Act, like the Climate Change Act that they have in the UK, which legislates carbon budgets every 5 years and creates an independent advisory panel that continuously audits those policies to see if we're going to make targets and assigns targets across industries, is absolutely key. And I think political courage really is key. People don't understand what climate change means. Some of that is very much a communications challenge. I do believe health is the way to solve that particular challenge. And I think we're really well positioned to be the people who lead that, because we're not overly influenced by any industry that will lead us astray.
Thank you. Amita.
Thank you. Yeah, and I just want to say thanks, Glenn, and I am ready for this. Yeah, I agree with everything that Miriam said and Courtney agreed. There's everything to be done. And really, to me, it starts with the biggest thing that is always left out, which is the reality of the climate crisis on the ground for everybody here in this country and around the world. We're not preparing. We have a great opportunity to actually do that, and that's empowering local communities to get ready for what we're seeing, and also mitigate and shift our economies around. And that economic transition is such an opportunity for us to actually dig into a new way of life and a new concept of the world again, or perhaps I should say an older concept of the world that will really be one that is resilient. And in all of it, we have to get to a questioning of the status quo. And that's something they're just not doing at all. This doesn't work. Our economic system doesn't work. Our societal systems don't work. And we see it through the pandemic. Everyone's lives are completely precarious. Most of us are completely left out. And if we don't get everybody back to a place where they have control of their own lives and health and safety, then they're not going to be able to do anything. So I agree with GLI. It's about mobilizing a population, and that's about building strong, resilient communities that are both capable of having the future, but also being ready for the transition themselves. Thanks.
Thank you. David.
Thank you. A key tool that this government is not using is a climate action plan that actually has set targets, timelines, an accountability structure, and serious consequences for failing to deliver. And if the Green Party of Canada holds the balance of power in the next parliament, that will help us ensure that we have a serious climate action plan where the government is required to deliver, or we pull the plug on the minority government. Second thing that's missing is a vision, a sense of inspiration and commitment to what needs to be done. We see consistent incrementalism from the Liberals. We see them saying one thing at election time, doing the opposite when they're in government. And what we need is a vision and authenticity. That's what the Green Party offers. We've been campaigning on climate action since we were founded in 1983. So we need a sense of integrity, authenticity, a willingness to follow through, and a willingness to be honest with Canadians. To say to my cousin Glenn in Alberta, yeah, the transition won't be easy, but we have a serious plan. We've costed it out. We know how we're going to pay for it. It's very detailed, almost 100 pages in our last campaign. And we know how to make the transition happen because it's happening already in so many different places in Canada and around the world. So let's inspire Canadians. Let's hold the government to account, and let's force them to use the tools that they have not been using since 2015 when they first got into office. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
The biggest tool that the government isn't using is the truth. Conservatives downplay the fact that we have a climate crisis at all. Liberals say that it's possible that we can meet our Paris Accord targets and still buy a pipeline, the very thing that actually causes us not to be able to reach our Paris Accord targets. So we need to start holding the government accountable and start saying, you know, be honest with Canadians. We also need to have a national price on carbon. When we have the fee and dividend program, I think it was a mistake for the Liberal government to offload that responsibility to the provinces, where we could have had one national plan so provinces weren't arguing with the Canadian government as they currently are now, and we actually could actually having a real way to address the climate crisis with the price on carbon. The next thing I would actually do is focus more on, which Greens I know everyone supports, is electoral reform. I actually think that this is almost more important than the climate crisis, because if we had a fairer electoral system, we would be electing fairer governments that reflect the people of Canada better, passing fairer legislation. And we could have been having fairer laws on the environment, better laws on the environment for quite some time if we had a better way to elect governments. Those are three tools that I know the Green Party can bring to Canada. Sorry, thanks.
Thank you, Andrew. And finally, Dimitri.
I think the number one tool that the federal government is not employing is the law, is the power to legislate. And here I want to build on a couple of things that Glenn and David both raised with complete justification. I'll start by pointing out that in June 2019, our parliament passed a non-binding motion to declare a national climate emergency. It had absolutely no practical impact. I've called for an amendment to the Federal Interpretation Act, which covers the interpretation by our courts across the country of federal law, to include a provision declaring a national climate emergency and requiring the courts of this country to interpret all federal legislation and regulations with the priority of resolving that emergency at the earliest possible moment. That's the power of the lawmaking to save us from an existential crisis. And other organizations like EcoJustice have gone further. And they've talked about legislating long-term carbon pollution targets, legislating a 5-year national and subnational carbon budget, 5-year impact reports that set out the risk that climate change poses to Canadians. So this would be required by law, a requirement that the government prepare detailed plans showing how it will meet the targets, and an arm's length legislatively created experts committee comprised of climate change experts to deal with this crisis and advise the government. We now need to use the full power of federal lawmaking to save our planet and preserve the future of our children.
Thank you. Okay. Well, we're just into our closing statements now. If we kept them to 30 seconds, then we'd stay within our 8:30 timeframe. So why don't we aim for a 30-second? I know you were maybe preparing a 60-second, but let's try to do 30 seconds. I'll give you the heads up at 30, and please wrap it up. So we're going to begin with Courtney.
Thanks. And I may have misheard, but I feel like Andrew may have just said that we don't have a national price on carbon, but we definitely do. So maybe I misheard. So, and I'm excited about that. That's great. We need to ramp that up. Overall, we're in the middle of a planetary health emergency. We need to address needs for health and safety now with a guaranteed basic income. We need to provide people a North Star that they can use to guide their travel from here on in, make a well-being based economy, follow the New Zealand model, make a well-being dashboard that we use in addition to GDP when we do our budgeting, and build everything up from there so that we make sure that we are decreasing inequality, providing people housing, ability to have food, income to transition with a guaranteed free tuition, and stabilizing our ecological foundation so our kids can continue to have jobs and food into the future.
Thank you. Dimitri.
As Naomi Klein has so eloquently argued again and again, the core cause of the climate emergency is our economic system. It richly rewards a small group of people for externalizing the costs of their production, foisting them on all of the innocent people around the world who haven't contributed significantly to this crisis, and then retaining the profits and using those profits and the extreme wealth they've accumulated to impede the transformational changes that we need. If we don't come to grips with that, I don't think we're ultimately going to resolve this crisis, even though all the solutions are available to us. We know what needs to be done. So let's bind together, let's come together and address the core inequities of our economic system, and finally overcome the one obstacle to true change, and that is the billionaire class.
Thank you. David.
Thank you. What we need is a Green Party that's effective and united. If we could turn all these 8 fantastic candidates in this leadership race into active Greens, running for office, winning seats, forming a fantastic shadow cabinet, and leading the way in the House of Commons, we would transform Canadian politics. And it starts with a clear, compelling message on the climate emergency. And the Green Party has consistently shown we are the only party that can deliver that message. And that's why we need a leader to pull everyone together and push that message forward for all Canadians. Thank you.
Thank you. Glenn.
So we need to be a party that welcomes everyone from Dimitri to people who come from a conservative background like Jim Harris. The challenge we have is, it's great to go to war against capitalism for the next 8 years, but we have some challenges. And when you've been in government and you've achieved those reductions, you realize how much you have to have the confidence of small and large business, labor, and those groups. They're highly mobile. If you can't inspire and build those kinds of teams, it is very hard to do that. Government's power is limited in a global economy. So we have to have that balance between our really progressive politics and the pragmatism that we need to get near-term reductions, because we only have 8 years to do this. And we have to work in with the constraints of those realities, because not hitting our target is a disaster.
Thank you. Amita.
Thank you, and thank you, Angela, and the Ontario Clean Air Alliance and all the organizers for putting this on tonight. Wildfires are burning the Pacific Coast. We're breathing in some of the worst air in the world. It is clear we need rapid transformative change. Change comes from building community, from empowering people, and from being there for one another. On my campaign, we've built an amazing space together, and you're invited to join us. We want to share it with the party, the country, and the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Miriam.
We live currently in a polarizing world. We see politicians using popularism to reassure people into voting, for people to vote for them. We cannot let xenophobic governments nor governments that destroy ecosystems taking power. And we are seeing an ecocide happening in front of our eyes, and politicians are incapable of demonstrating political courage. I am a symbol of progress and courage, and this is what our time requires. We have an event happening this Sunday in 2 days called the Watermelon Revolution Convention, with great speakers that will be joining us. We will be talking about real policy and what can be done for change. We'll be talking about land back, police abolition, green jobs, and building a coalition. We need to elect as many progressive MPs in Parliament to save our future. Thank you.
Thank you. And Andrew?
So just quickly, Courtney, yes, thank you pointing that out. But what I was saying was there is a national price on carbon only if the provinces don't have one, then the federal one kicks in. That creates a complication, and I just think that it would be better, less problematic with just one. But thank you for clearing that up, and thank you for everyone for being here. Again, some of my words have been misconstrued. That's unfortunate. I want this party to be welcoming and inclusive, bring us all together. And since we have short amount of time, I had to explain that. I'll just end on this real quick. Why this is so important to elect a Green Party. Canada produces about 2% of the greenhouse gas emissions in the world. Some say that we can't do enough. That's not it, that one country can't do much. But in World War II, Canada had about 2% of the Allied forces back then. We made a difference there. We can make a difference now. So I thank you for everyone for joining us today, and please consider myself and these other great candidates in this coming election or on October 3rd. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And wow, that was outstanding. With such skill and passion, surely we can turn the ship around and reduce our climate impact. We hope this climate town hall will help shape the climate debate in this country and the Green Party as well. I'd like to thank all the candidates for their commitment to climate leadership. One of you will be the next leader of the Green Party of Canada. We wish you all well. Thank you to everybody. And for the benefit of the Zoom registrants, I'll send you a link tomorrow that you can share with your friends of this debate. And to close, let's enjoy this 2-minute song for the climate.
We need to wake up. We need to wise up. We need to open our eyes and do it now, now, now. We need to build a better future, and we need to start right now. We're on a planet that has a problem. We've got to solve it, get involved, and do it now, now, now. We need to build a better future right now. We need to build a better future, and we need